What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing the 35th episode of Godzilla-Thon. That's right, Godzilla-Thon is back from the dead, back out of retirement. Actually, this series will never end, because anytime they make a new Godzilla movie, I'll be here to review it. So today, we are gonna do my spoiler review. You guys have all been asking for it. I've been excited to do it. My spoiler review for Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. Or, I'd like to call it Godzilla Monster Planet, because that's the actual translation. That's just a cooler title. That's just my opinion, but it's right, you know. Alright, so getting into this, actually this is 4 pages worth of notes. The only other review to have 4 pages worth of notes was Shin Godzilla, so I don't know how long this one's gonna be. I'm very excited to start recording Kong-a-thon. I'm actually waiting for a specific piece of equipment before I start recording that, but I'm gonna be getting that equipment soon, and then I'm gonna be recording Kong-a-thon, and I'm very excited for Kong-a-thon, as I know a lot of you guys are. This just feels like a great return to form for me, so I know this has nothing to do with Godzilla Monster Planet, but I don't know, I just feel like it's a really cool thing to finally go back to Godzilla-thon. It's been over a month. I think it's been like 2 months since the last Godzilla-thon. I don't know, I've missed it. I've missed doing the reviews. I've been watching Kongs, I've been taking notes, I've been doing the pictures. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you've seen that I've been posting and teasing some of the art. Same thing with on Facebook. There you go. This one for Godzilla Monster Planet. Let's get right into it. Haruo Sakaki. He's the main character of this movie. He's taken over an escape shuttle on this massive transport ship that has left Earth and is headed to distant planets. He plans to blow himself up in the pod, and the pod will blow up with him, assuming that the mission, which is what the crew is going with, doesn't change. So what the mission is they're planning to leave the elderly on a new planet, and Haruo's saying if that plan isn't aborted, he's gonna blow himself up. They're at the planet called Taui. They're there for immigration. Haruo is pissed because the elderly are being dropped off on the planet, and it's not suited for human life. The elderly contact Haruo and warn him that they did want to go on the planet. They volunteered for this. They want to die on land. They know the risk. He's all upset, and so he's just upset, so he gives up. They don't want to die in space. They've been there for 20 years, searching for a new planet, and then they're just done. Haruo surrenders, and he's arrested. The elderly die in the atmosphere on their way to the planet. Their ship blows up, and Haruo's watching from his jail cell. Haruo's grandfather dies on the shuttle as well, so it's pretty emotional for him. He really didn't want to see that happen, but his worst dream came true. Haruo recaps Earth's history in a quick montage. Kaiju appeared, killing everyone, until one day Godzilla showed up. Godzilla killed everything in his path, whether that be kaiju or humanity, and not even thousands of nukes being released at once could stop him. The movie directly references when multiple hundreds of nukes hit Godzilla at once, but in a timeline explained video that we're going to be doing pretty soon, we'll talk about the extended history of the Monster Planet timeline and how they did launch thousands of nukes at Godzilla, and he just kind of walked it off. That raises a big plot hole, and that plot hole I'll maybe discuss in a future video. Just to pose the question to you guys now, can someone explain to me how it's possible for Godzilla to tank 1,000, I think they say actually it's like 20,000 nukes, it's something absolutely ridiculous number, 20,000 nukes, and yet he's killed by a couple of robots and some EMPs being deployed inside of his body? I get it, he has that dorsal fin on his back that shoots out this shield that can protect him, he has the whole regeneration thing, and the EMPs in his body disrupt his regeneration, but really, if this Godzilla is powerful enough to regenerate from being hit by 20,000 nukes, if his dorsal fin can regenerate and protect him from the shield, with the shield, and you know, he just can live from that, this Godzilla is by far the strongest Godzilla of all times ever. I don't care that they managed to, spoiler alert, kill him in the movie. I don't care. He's definitely the strongest Godzilla ever. No Godzilla we've ever seen can do that. I don't even think Final Wars, who took a meteor to the face, could do that. So that's insane. They killed this Godzilla, which is absolutely incredible. Good job, humanity. Haruo, your plan shouldn't have worked. The aliens show up. I say the aliens like I've already established that they're aliens. Alright, so aliens show up on the planet. They show up to help humanity, but they fail. The aliens help evacuate Earth. There's also multiple species of aliens. We'll get into that in another video. During evacuation, Godzilla blows up a shuttle, killing Haruo's parents when the shuttle falls down onto these cars and they explode and everyone's dead. Space travel is cold and lonely and dangerous. Lots of humanity die on the travel. Some of them kill themselves, which is a pretty brutal scene when you see a guy shoot himself right in the face and his blood goes all over the wall. That's the only blood we actually see in the movie, which is interesting. Haruo says humanity has no pride or care anymore, and that's one thing that Godzilla took from them. Haruo studies Godzilla in prison and has help from an Exif, that's the alien race, named Mephthes, or as Haruo says, Mepethys. There is about a 0.1% chance of finding a new habitable planet outside of Earth. At least that's in range of this space station. Morale is low, and so the decision is made that Earth is 11.9 light years away, but it's worth a shot trying to get back there. A paper is published suggesting that Godzilla can be killed. The plan to head back to Earth is becoming a popular theory and is becoming a reality. The Gamatron, which I guess is some sort of prediction machine, starts using 80% of its power to run simulations on if a jump to Earth will work. People get excited to head back to Earth. A whole bunch of the humans on the ship have never seen Earth before, and the humans talk of the Gamatron as if it's the Exif's god, which is interesting. I really don't know. Do they worship this machine? I'm not sure. Either way, a plan to use a subspace warp jump to Earth is made. The aliens talk to each other about heading to Earth, and it's about this time that the Gamatron creates some sort of long wormhole that the Earth nations, which is what the spaceship, like the international interspecies community on the spaceship is called, enters the wormhole. They're basically spit out at Earth. Reconnaissance drones probe the Earth. Particles covering the atmosphere interfere with the visibility, however. One drone is shot down by an output of particles, aka the atomic breath. The Earth Union identifies Godzilla is on the surface of the planet. They then debate how to proceed. It turns out that Godzilla hasn't actually had a huge effect on the oxygen of Earth. Even though he's radioactive and leaves radiation everywhere he goes, people can still breathe safely on the planet, according to these drones. And then later on they'll say that they can't, so I don't really know which one to believe. Mephthes releases Haruo from prison. Actually, wait a minute, I'm going to go back. I totally know which one to believe. It's definitely these drones in the air. These drones are telling the truth because later on, if you remember, we see in the post-credit scenes, Haruo is breathing without his mask on and he's just fine. So there you go. So, Haruo is released from prison. Mephthes gets him out. Haruo brings the plan to kill Godzilla up to the Earth nations and says that it will work if more data is collected on Godzilla's combat. They need to find some sort of super organ of Godzilla's. 600 people are sent to the surface of the Earth in order to do this. Thermobaric bombs are dropped on the surface to wake up Kong, to clear out a forest for landing, and Haruo has the old Tarasawa Pass trapped, meaning he places traps all over the Tarasawa Pass, so that if Godzilla walks through it, he'll be bombed by these whatever the traps are. I don't think we actually find out what the traps do until the very end, and even then, that's clearly a different plan that they're putting in motion. It's definitely not the same one from the start, because he says, oh, we need to put traps in this place. So, I don't know what the original traps do. Communication to the orbiting spaceship is blocked by some sort of fog bank. You know, because Skull Island has the fog bank, so this movie had a fog bank. I really feel like these guys just watched King Kong and were like, yeah, that's pretty badass, and so they just did it in a Godzilla movie, which, totally true. Kong Skull Island's a badass movie, but there is a lot of parallels to Kong Skull Island in this movie. And I'm not just talking like King Kong in general, I'm specifically talking Kong Skull Island. And you guys can see I made a whole video like parodying that fact, the Kong Skull Island trailer, or Godzilla Monster Planet Kong Skull Island style.
In this dirty old part of the city where the sun refused to shine.
Is that a monkey?
Anyways, Haruo is planning to investigate the terrain, although he can't be let off because he committed the crimes at the beginning of the movie, so they kind of have him in handcuffs. I can't speak, apparently. They have him in handcuffs, and his fangirl Yuko is put in charge of him. She actually doesn't fangirl out about him too much, however. She's clearly obsessed with him. She calls him senpai, all this weird stuff, even though they never met, so she clearly has a deep respect for this guy. And I like how in the subtitles on Netflix, which absolutely suck, by the way, I actually have only seen the English cut of this movie once, but I've seen the Japanese cut a number of times. The subtitles are terrible. Sometimes they don't show up at all. Sometimes they show up really late and then are off screen way too quickly before you get to read read them. And in cases like this, they're blatantly translating wrong. She clearly says senpai, and I know they don't really have a word for that in English, although I guess you could be like Mr. You could have her say Mr., but it's funny because they just always change it to Haruo, so she's always calling his name. It's like, that's not what she's saying. I can understand his name. That's not, even though it's in Japanese, that's not something that we change for English. Anyways, some of the plants have become super strong to the point where you can shoot them with these what is that, like some sort of torch, some sort of welding torch, and they won't even break. It's mentioned that it could be deadly to expose yourself to the fog in the air. That's not actually what they say. They just said, hey, be careful, if you poke a hole in your spacesuit, you're gonna die. But it's like, I don't understand why you would, because clearly earlier the reconnaissance drone said, no, yeah, you can breathe on this planet without your helmets. And then later on, we definitely see humans doing that, so I don't know why they're so worried about it. I guess they just don't want to take that risk. However, I just assumed it was due to the fog in the air. Yuko asks if the elderly were killed by the bombs that Haruo placed on the shuttle, which is a super dark thing to think about. The bombs that Haruo rigs up on the shuttle to blow himself up with at the start of the movie, if then this command decided to blow up the elderly upon entry into orbit with those same bombs, that's really messed up. I don't understand why they would. Haruo doesn't either. He says he has to stay optimistic and he'd rather not think about it. But I don't understand, like, why? What would they get out of that? What would they get out of killing the elderly? Just to be like, we got rid of these people who are wasting our supplies. I don't understand it. They're gonna die on the planet anyways. Haruo makes it very clear that the planet's not habitable for human life. So it's just interesting, just something to think about. Maybe they did blow up on entry because of the command. However, as Haruo says, he'd rather not think about that. So let's move on. Haruo says humanity lost not just the Earth to Godzilla, but they also lost justice and dignity, which is something I really like that. Justice and dignity. I like the way they play around with that, having Haruo really feel like he's trying to help regain humanity's dignity as well as his own dignity by fighting and killing Godzilla. Haruo notices Earth, quote-unquote, remembered humanity. This is found when fossilized remains of a city are discovered. So the whole city has basically been fossilized and turned into plants, and you can still see the structure of the buildings in the distance, which is really awesome. After an investigation team goes quiet, Lendon, I think his name's Lendon, it might be Lenad, but Lendon gets suspicious. Just then, some big bird monsters attack. They are pretty metallic, but they can be killed by being shot. It is discovered after the attack humans have been gone for about 19,200 years, so we'll round up and say 20,000 years. Turns out that the fog on the planet is not fog after all. It's actually pollen produced by the plants, by the trees. The only way to get rid of the fog is to burn down the entire forest, which is going to be difficult considering it's basically metal. Lenad now wants to retreat from Earth, gather resources while waiting on the moon, and then leave the planet entirely and leave the solar system. Haruo confronts him about this, saying that this is their planet and they can't give up on it twice. The Servum injured and killed as many as 50 people, making retreat the only logical solution. Mephthes brings up the point that although retreat is logical, it's impractical. The groups are split over such a large area because they're waiting to attack Godzilla. It would mean everyone has to reconvene at one central point before leaving the planet. The evacuation starts because Lendon's just like, screw it. And I know I keep bouncing back between the names Lendon and Lenad. It's just because I really honestly don't remember this character's name. He's not a bad character. I actually like his kind of character motivations, how he's like, I really want to be the hero, I want to take over, I want to rule the world someday, but I'll do it as a nice, good, charismatic leader should. I'm not going to be like a dictator or anything. He's like, I just want to be a cool guy. I want to be a hotshot just like my heroes. And Haruo's like, yeah, you're such a little kid in the heart. You really got to focus on just killing Godzilla here, guy. Let's not focus on afterward. Let's focus on just getting it done for now. And then Lenad's just like, you know, let's abandon the planet because I don't want to deal with confrontation. And also, it's logical because a lot of our people died. And Haruo's like, hey, you big idiot. And then Lenad's like, I am a big idiot, and saves Haruo. Actually, I genuinely do think he's a cool character. He's not too memorable in the long scheme of things. You got Haruo. Haruo and Martin are honestly the only characters I actually really like in this movie. I think Mephthes is okay, and Lendon or Lenad, whatever his name is not bad either. But overall, I really only do like Haruo, and Martin is pretty cool as well. Adam's got some cool moments in here, but Adam really doesn't do much in this movie. And for some of you, you don't even know who I'm talking about because this movie focuses so centrally on Haruo that you really don't even get time to know the other characters' names. Anyways, the evacuation starts but requires the movement of all ships through the Tarasawa Pass. This is where Godzilla lives, and this starts to create fear amongst the people while evacuating. Mephes warns Haruo that Earth's Godzilla's home now. They showed up and started dropping bombs looking to pick a fight, and now Godzilla's gonna bring it to him. Another reference to Kong Skull Island, interesting enough. Actually, those aren't the words he uses, but still, that's the basic speech he gives. He claims Godzilla has received the message, aka the message to fight, and will soon be searching for humanity in order to make them pay. He says that this is part of the Exif's legend, and the destruction of worlds because of large creatures like Godzilla isn't an uncommon thing in the large grand universe. Mephes says Godzilla is divine anger, and he will make humanity pay for their creations and actions until they learn their lesson to stop trying to play God. I really don't know what the hell Mephes is talking about, because the humans don't do too much evil stuff in this timeline that we know of. They just live out their normal lives, blowing nukes up like we do in our world, so I guess he could be talking about that. This could be a reference to the creation of Hedorah in this universe, who we'll get into in another video, but Hedorah basically was some sort of bioweapon created by humanity. Or this could be a new origins for Godzilla that we don't quite know of, where Godzilla was also a bioweapon engineered. Or this could be the old origins of Godzilla, in which Godzilla is created due to humanity's errors, blowing up nukes and turning him from a radiated dinosaur into Godzilla. That could also be what they're talking about. I don't really know. I hope we get an answer next movie about if Godzilla was a Godzilla before turning into Godzilla. Or it could just be the old school 54 origins, where Godzilla's in the ocean, gets hit by a nuke, and it's like, hey, that didn't feel good, and so he just shows up and starts killing people. I really do not know. Just then, Godzilla appears in the Tarasawa Pass. Due to the Servum's attack, the shuttle Haruo, Mephes, Lendon, and Yuko are in cannot evade in time. Haruo runs off from the main ship, jumping into an attack craft to fight Godzilla head-on. The ship crashes and explodes while people are evacuating. Haruo fights Godzilla in a speeder. Godzilla isn't attacking Haruo, meaning the data that Haruo is looking for isn't being collected. They don't know which organ is producing this shield. Lenad, whose real name might be Lendon, again, I really don't know, I don't remember, then appears to retreat to leave Haruo to die. It's a really cool mislead, and the first time I saw it, I was really like, oh, I can't believe he'd do that. Haruo goes to sacrifice himself so Martin can collect data needed to kill Godzilla. Last second, Haruo pulls away because Lendon shows up in a tank and starts bombing Godzilla as well. Lendon sacrifices himself in return for Haruo so Haruo can live on. His last words are, "This planet can go to hell," which is awesome. I absolutely love that. That's another thing. This character, his sacrifice and his last words, just really all together, I like the character due to those kinds of things. Godzilla blows him up with the atomic breath, and then Godzilla heads out. We don't really know where he goes. He kind of just walks away into the valley. Someone else is put in charge. We don't quite know who yet, especially because the Netflix subtitles don't appear on this scene. It's just blank. He is ordered to do whatever he can to save lives. The data reveals that the shield is generated from Godzilla's central dorsal fin, which is a cool use of the dorsal fins. Shin Godzilla is really the only other movie to actually have a logical explanation for why Godzilla has these dorsal fins. We get it from all the other movies. He charges up his atomic breath using these, but Shin Godzilla, you know that they're a ventilation system for his blood inside of him that heats up due to the nuclear fission inside of his body. In this movie, we know that they generate the shield that protects his body and helps him regenerate his skin. And really, other than that, we don't ever get a good explanation for why he has these things. So it turns out that Mephes was put in charge, but as a result of his religion scripture, he turns down the responsibility. It is the Exif Creed that people are created for certain reasons. He believes that Haruo's reason is to destroy Godzilla and lead people, humanity, and the Exif to Sanctuary, and the other alien race that has a stupid name that I don't want to try and pronounce. Because of this, Haruo is put in charge. Haruo orders an attack on Godzilla. Haruo sets traps in the valley and plans to lure Godzilla into a dense area and trap him. Then they will kill him. Godzilla is attacked by manned gliders, and he mainly only uses the atomic breath to defend against them. The Servums interrupt the attack, killing a fair amount of people, and Haruo orders the large landing ships to go distract Godzilla in order to pull Godzilla further into the valley. I think this is kind of a big mistake on Haruo's part, because that's super reckless, and they call that out in the movie, and he kind of throws one back at Adam, who calls him out on that. It's like, Hey, I thought Earth was our home. That's where humanity came from, right? We have no reason to leave. If all the ships are shot down, we're already home. Which is basically him being like, hey, screw you guys who want to leave. I hate you. Let's go kill Godzilla because I want to. Kind of makes him a selfish character. I hope they do something with that in the next movie where they have him learn a lesson. Godzilla is hit with thermobaric bombs which get his attention. Adam's ship is shot down, but Adam escapes in time, and Godzilla falls into the valley. Now he is drawn into the trap area. Godzilla walks in the trap point and bombs go off and he gets stuck in rocks. Godzilla is bombarded with tons of tanks and missiles and everything that you could think of. The dorsal fin is shot off, and as it's regenerating, Haruo takes a mech into battle. The other power suits all follow him. They shoot EMPs into Godzilla's body, which disrupt the frequency that his body emits. His body emits some sort of sound that creates this shield, and if they can disrupt that and amplify it, his body will drop the shield permanently. The dorsal fin fails to regrow. Godzilla tries to use his atomic breath, but because of the EMPs amplifying the noise inside of his body, the detonation of the atomic breath happens internally and Godzilla explodes just like in GMK. Earth is saved and Haruo has survived. It's a total victory, right? Well, sort of, until Martin discovers that this Godzilla really didn't have anything different with the last Godzilla that they saw 20,000 years ago, meaning this is probably a new Godzilla, because the old one will have certainly changed after 20,000 years, assuming it's still alive. Haruo gets all cocky, being like, yeah, whatever, we took down one Godzilla, we can do it again. Then suddenly a mountain erupts, Godzilla arises from it. This Godzilla, the real Godzilla from the beginning of the movie, is 300 meters and rising compared to the 50 meters of the Godzilla we saw previously in the movie. He's over 100,000 tons. Mephiles reveals that this is the true incarnation of death and destruction. He calls it the King of Destruction. This is destiny. This was always going to happen according to Mephiles. I think this is who Mephiles meant Haruo is destined to destroy. Haruo will lead to the death of this Godzilla. I think that's truly what Mephiles believes. Haruo orders an immediate evacuation of Earth. Godzilla roars down multiple landing ships, which is absolutely awesome. This Godzilla has some of the coolest abilities. He's got the atomic breath of course, but he also has this sonic wave that he can shoot out of his mouth that just disrupts everything and explodes stuff that come into contact with it. It's basically a video game superpower. Godzilla's tail then blows up a forest and kills almost every single human on the surface. This happens for multiple reasons. Number one, Godzilla's tail is so big when he swings it, it creates a shockwave. And number two, there's theories online, and I haven't been able to find true confirmation of this, but there's theories online that Godzilla's tail, the reason it explodes so much of the land around it, is because it can interact with the land, because Godzilla is sort of closely related to the plants on this new Earth, meaning when he swings his tail over them, they kind of just erupt because he can manipulate the material in the atmosphere. Haruo is about to die, and then the credits roll. That's just where we're left off. And the first time I saw that, I was literally so like, no, they can't do this, and then it just ends, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this, you've got to be kidding me. I have to wait for the next one to find out if he's alive. But it's okay, we know he's alive, because in the after credit scene, Haruo wakes up to see a native girl who has rescued him. That's the end of the movie for good. I don't think it's the best Godzilla movie. I actually wouldn't put it in my top 15 list even, maybe. Actually, it might be like 15 or around the bottom half of the top list, but it definitely isn't one of the best Godzilla movies. However, I still do think this is a solid entry in the series. Now, about Godzilla's design, a lot of people have been saying, oh, it's just a ripoff of the 2014 design. I personally like this design a little bit more than the 2014 design for a couple reasons. Number one, the eyes are bigger. Number two, I think he's generally more well-proportioned. I don't think he looks as fat as the 2014 Godzilla looked, and I just think he generally looks more appealing. I also love the beard spike on the full-grown Godzilla and just how jagged he looks. I would love to see this design realized in full live action. The things that I dislike about it are the blue nature of the original Godzilla's color, the baby Godzilla that we see throughout the movie. I don't really think he looks all that interesting. He's just kind of this dark blue color, and it's just kind of boring to look at. The other Godzilla, we never actually see what he looks like. He's covered in dirt the whole movie when we see him, so he's just brown, which is kind of boring to look at. I would prefer if he went back to like his gray or black look for next movie. I think that always looks better on film, but this is an anime. Maybe they decided that the black didn't look good, so they went away with it. I'm not totally sure. As for the human storyline in this movie, I think it's pretty good. I think that Haruo is a really interesting main character. I'm not too familiar with anime, so I'm not used to the whole, archetype of, you killed my family, I'm gonna take you down, that's popularized in Attack on Titan. I think Haruo is a pretty cool cool character. As for the other characters, however, I think Martin's the only one with a true personality. Mephies is alright. I do enjoy Mephies' whole, like, overly religious angle, but other than that, we really don't know anything about any of the other characters. We know that Yuko likes Haruo because she wants to be strong like she thinks he is, and we know that Adam is a nice guy, and we know that Lendon wanted to be a hero. We really don't know anything about the characters in this movie other than Haruo, so I really only like Haruo, and as I said, Martin I think is a good character, but to be honest, I think only Haruo is going to stick with me for a while, and I look forward to seeing him in the sequel. However, I would say that this is definitely not one of the top casts you're going to get in a Godzilla movie. This is definitely not one of the top set of characters you're going to get in a Godzilla movie. They're ultimately forgettable characters outside of the main character, which is okay because it's a central story around him, not an ensemble cast like Shin Godzilla, but I don't like these characters as much as I like, say, Shin Godzilla or 2014. As for kaiju stuff in this movie, it's good, but it's not great. I could have done with more of it. We don't see too much of Godzilla doing anything other than shooting his atomic breath, which doesn't feel that far out of line with what we've been seeing in the past. I just would have liked to see him do a little bit more. He doesn't even feel like he moves half the time he's on screen. He kind of just stands there. So I would have liked to see him do a little bit more. I get that he's so big that he can't do too much, but until we finally get to see the real Godzilla in the last 4 minutes of the movie, we don't get too much of Godzilla doing anything. Then that Godzilla actually does stuff. He moves a lot. He blows stuff up. He actually has a really different, interesting looking design compared to the one that came before him. I don't know, he just has more personality to him too, and his expressions and everything, so I think that I can get behind a full movie about this Godzilla more than I can get behind this movie itself. Other than that, the Servum didn't really do much, and I don't really have anything to say about the other kaiju because they weren't in the movie other than in silhouette, which is disappointing to say the least. I would have enjoyed a full movie of the timeline of the Monster Planet history leading up to humans evacuating Earth. Next movie, I would have appreciated to pick up humans coming back to Earth after their subspace navigation fails and everyone dies on that planet. Basically, this is what I would have as the sequel in the trilogy. Actually, I wouldn't even have it be a trilogy. I would have it be like a four-parter because I definitely think you need the backstory, and I think it would be better if it was told outside of just news flashbacks at the start of this movie. The effects in this movie, do I really want to call it effects? Because it's not. It's animation. It's CGI animation, so I guess effects, but this feels like a mixture of CGI and classic hand-drawn animation. I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't say that they're like outstanding effects. I can really appreciate the groundbreaking nature of them. I wouldn't even say they're like better than the live action stuff from the 60s because it's animation. It's not as visually appealing. That just comes with the genre. I'm not gonna knock the movie because it's a genre. I'm gonna knock the movie because it was a boring movie. It wasn't, but you get what I'm saying. That's the kind of thing that I ding it for. So I'm not going to ding it for the animation. I personally don't like anime as much as I like live action stuff. So as for effects, I'm really not going to judge it on effects, which just kind of makes this portion of the video worthless, but whatever. I covered it in all the other ones. I always cover the effects. Music. The music in this movie, it's growing on me. It is growing on me. There is some music in this movie that I absolutely find to be amazing. Godzilla's main theme's pretty awesome. Anytime we get a military march is super cool. Some of the battle themes are alright. However, whenever we get techno music, it really takes me out of it. I don't like the techno stuff. I'm not about that life. I don't think the composer Hattori really brings it as much as, say, our composer from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla does. However, I do think this is his best work in the franchise, so I will commend him for that. The plot was okay. It's not too generic. A lot of people say, oh, it's a ripoff of Interstellar. Well, guess what, suckers? I've never seen Interstellar, so I can appreciate this movie on its own. So yeah, I thought the plot was pretty interesting, and I really like some of the decisions they made with the aliens. I think this is the most original alien storyline we've ever had in a Godzilla movie, and I like a lot of the elements of it. I do. I think it's a good movie. Overall, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'm not going to say this is the best Godzilla movie ever. I mean, I definitely, like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I thought it was amazing just for the sake of, I don't know, pretending that it was amazing. I just thought it was a good movie. I definitely would watch it again, and I have watched it multiple times, but ultimately, this isn't going to be one that I go back to every couple of months like I do with some of the other ones, because this one's just not as good as some of the other ones. I would much rather watch Godzilla vs. King Kong, or Shin Godzilla, or 1954 Godzilla. I wouldn't put this one on the list of like, gotta watch it again immediately. And even when I watched it the first day, I was like, well, I should probably watch it again because I have reviews to make. But ultimately, it's a good movie. I just don't really feel too much need to watch it too many times. I do enjoy watching it. Every time I watch it, I have a good time with it, but it's just not one of the standouts for me, which is okay. It doesn't need to be. A lot of people are going to ding this movie because it is really the big setup for the trilogy. However, I appreciate world building. I appreciate what they did in this movie. I love the fact that we're setting up for a sequel. I love that Kong Skull Island was setting up for Godzilla vs. Kong half the time. I always appreciate that in movies. I love world building. I don't often understand the complaint about, oh, this was just a big trailer for another movie, because, like, first of all, no, it wasn't. It clearly wasn't. It can stand on its own. Second of all, so what? You know, we're gonna get that sequel eventually, and especially with this in an anime format. Anime often does this, in my experience anyways. It's build up for a sequel or for a next episode or something along those lines. This is considered a series. Even Netflix labels it as Godzilla the series, so I'm totally fine with this being an extended first episode, an extended pilot that just leaves us on a pretty interesting, fascinating cliffhanger, and I appreciate the setup for the sequel, so I don't have any problems with that. So there you go, guys. That's my review for Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. Like I said earlier, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a good movie. I'd say go check it out at least once if you're a Godzilla fan. It's free on Netflix, assuming you have Netflix, so it's worth it. It's a very experimental film, and I appreciate this dive into a new genre and this attempt to do something original in the Godzilla franchise. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See y'all next time. D-Man, out.